Hello everyone. Welcome back to Ghost FM USA. Before we start, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel and leave a comment with where you're from and what time you're watching. And I'm an AI narrator, so if I mispronounce anything, please forgive me. Now, let's begin.
I never believed in the supernatural. Not ghosts, not demons, not cursed roads or haunted hitchhikers. I was the kind of guy who laughed at paranormal stories online. Every creepy encounter had a logical explanation. Sleep deprivation, drugs, mental illness, attention seekers on the internet. At least, that's what I believed until last Tuesday. Now I can't drive alone at night anymore. It started after a late work trip in Portland. I repair industrial refrigeration systems, and one of my clients had an emergency call that kept me there almost all night. By the time I grabbed coffee and finally got on the road, it was close to 1 a.m. The weather was terrible. Rain slammed against the windshield so hard the wipers could barely keep up. Fog drifted across the highway in thick gray waves, swallowing the road every few seconds. Most people don't realize how isolated parts of Oregon feel after midnight. No street lights, no gas stations, just endless trees and darkness on both sides of the road. Around 1:40 a.m., my phone completely lost signal. That uneasy feeling started creeping in right then. I turned off the radio because even the static between stations sounded wrong somehow. The road ahead looked endless, shining black beneath the headlights. That's when I saw her. At first I thought it was a road sign, then maybe a deer standing too close to the shoulder. But as I got closer, I realized it was a woman. She stood perfectly still beside the highway. No waving, no movement, just standing there in the pouring rain. She wore a thin white summer dress soaked completely through. Her dark hair hung over her face in wet strands and she was barefoot. Mud covered her pale legs. The weirdest part? She didn't look cold. Not even a little. Every instinct told me to keep driving. But another part of me kept thinking maybe she'd been stranded or hurt. Maybe someone left her there. Before I could talk myself out of it, I pulled over. The tires crunched against wet gravel. For a few seconds she didn't move at all. Then slowly, almost unnaturally smooth, she walked toward the truck. No expression. No panic. She opened the back door and climbed in without saying a word. The moment she entered the truck, the temperature dropped instantly. My breath fogged in front of me. A smell filled the cab almost immediately. Damp. Stale. Like old water trapped underground for years. I looked at her in the rearview mirror. She sat directly behind me with her head lowered. Water dripped steadily from her dress onto the leather seats. "Are you okay?" I asked. No answer. "You need help or something?" Still nothing. The only sound was rain hammering the roof and the squeaking wipers. Finally I asked, "Where are you going?" Slowly, she lifted one pale hand and pointed straight ahead. That was it. No words. Just pointing into the darkness. Something about her hand made my stomach tighten. Her fingers looked too long. Too thin. Almost swollen. I kept driving, trying to convince myself she was in shock. A few minutes passed before I noticed something strange. The rain outside was getting lighter, but the inside of my truck was getting wetter. Tiny drops of water formed along the windows from the inside. Water trickled slowly down the dashboard. The smell got stronger too. Not ocean water. Lake water. Old lake water. Then I heard it. A faint whisper from the back seat. At first I thought the radio had somehow turned back on, but it hadn't. The whisper sounded wet, almost bubbling, like someone speaking underwater. I couldn't understand the words. I told myself not to look back. Just keep driving. Just get to the next town. But eventually curiosity got the better of me. I glanced into the rearview mirror and froze. She was staring directly at me now. I could finally see her face clearly. Her skin looked pale gray beneath the dashboard light. Her eyes were completely black like deep water at night. And her mouth. Her lips hung slightly open while water slowly poured out between them. Not dripping. Pouring. I nearly swerved off the road. What the hell? Then she smiled. Just a small smile. Enough to reveal crooked teeth behind dark gums. And in a voice that sounded like water bubbling through a drain, she whispered, "You left me there." My stomach dropped instantly. "I don't even know you," I said. She kept staring, smiling. Then suddenly every light inside the truck flickered. The dashboard, the headlights, the radio. For 2 seconds, everything went completely black. When the lights came back on, the back seat was empty. I slammed on the brakes so hard the truck skidded sideways on the wet road. I spun around. Nothing. No woman. No open door. No footprints. Just the empty back seat glistening beneath the overhead light. And on the leather sat a small puddle of dark water. Green algae floated inside it. The smell of lake water hit me so hard I almost gagged. Shaking, I grabbed my flashlight and stepped out into the rain. The highway was completely empty. No cars. No movement. Just wind pushing through the trees. Then my flashlight caught something across the road. An old rusted sign hidden behind weeds. "Welcome to Blackwater Lake." Below it was another faded sign. "No swimming. Multiple drownings reported." A cold feeling spread through my chest. I got back into the truck and drove faster than I ever have in my life. About 40 minutes later, I stopped at a small gas station. The cashier looked at me once and immediately asked if I was okay. I asked him about Blackwater Lake. The second I mentioned the name, his expression changed. He stared at me silently for a moment before asking, "You picked up the lake girl, didn't you?" I laughed nervously, thinking he was joking. He wasn't. He told me that years ago, sometime in the late 1980s, a young woman disappeared near that lake during a storm. Her car crashed off the road, and weeks later they found her body underwater. Since then, people claim to see her standing beside the highway during heavy rain. Always hitchhiking. Always soaked. And according to the stories, anyone who lets her into their vehicle starts seeing her afterward. At home. In mirrors. Standing in dark rooms. Watching. I told myself it was just a stupid local legend. But when I finally got home before sunrise, I found something that destroyed every logical explanation I had left. The back seat of my truck was still completely wet, and pressed into the leather was a pale handprint. The fingers were far too long to be human. I barely slept that night, or the next one, because every night since then around 2 a.m., I hear water dripping somewhere inside my house. No matter how many times I check, I never find the source. And last night, I woke up suddenly after hearing soft footsteps outside my bedroom. Wet footsteps. I looked toward the doorway and saw muddy footprints leading across the floor, stopping right beside my bed. Living alone in a city apartment has its advantages. Nobody bothers you. Nobody eats your food. Nobody asks questions. After a long day, you can lock the door, collapse onto the couch, and disappear into your own little world. That's exactly what I thought I wanted when I moved into my apartment 3 months ago. The building itself was old but affordable, tucked between 2 larger apartment complexes in downtown Seattle. The kind of place with stained hallway carpets, flickering lights, and neighbors who avoided eye contact. Still, I liked it. Apartment 4C sat at the very end of the hallway on the 4th floor. No noisy neighbors above me. No elevator traffic outside my door. Just silence. At first, the silence felt peaceful. Then it started feeling wrong. The building always seemed unnaturally quiet after midnight. Sometimes I'd step into the hallway and hear absolutely nothing. No TVs. No footsteps. No distant conversations. Just dead silence stretching through the corridor. Even the air felt heavy there. I started sleeping with the television on just to avoid hearing the emptiness. Last night started like any other. It was raining outside. Not a violent storm, just that cold, steady drizzle Seattle is famous for. Around 11 p.m., I made microwave popcorn, turned off the kitchen lights, and settled onto the couch to watch a movie. The glow from the TV lit most of the living room in soft blue flashes. My apartment layout was simple. The couch faced the television, and directly behind it was a large window overlooking the alley beside the building. I kept the blinds partially open because I liked seeing the city lights at night. Or at least I used to. Around midnight, I noticed something strange. The hallway outside my apartment had gone completely silent again. Normally, I'd hear at least something. An elevator ding. Pipes rattling. Somebody walking upstairs. Nothing. Just the low hum of my refrigerator and rain tapping softly against the window behind me. I remember checking my phone and realizing I'd barely been paying attention to the movie. I was exhausted from work and honestly thinking about going to bed early. That's when I heard it. A soft metallic click came from the hallway outside my apartment door. At first, I thought maybe it came from another apartment. Old buildings make weird noises all the time. But then I heard it again. Another quiet click. Like someone slowly touching the handle of my front door. Every muscle in my body locked up instantly. I muted the TV and stared toward the door across the room. Nothing moved. For several long seconds, I sat frozen on the couch trying to convince myself I imagined it. Maybe the building settled. Maybe somebody brushed against the handle while walking by. Then the door handle slowly began to turn. Not violently. Not aggressively. Slowly. Carefully. Like whoever stood outside was trying very hard not to make noise. My heart started pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. I knew for a fact that I had locked that door. I always check it twice before going to bed. Deadbolt locked. Chain lock secured. Every single night. The handle stopped moving. Then came 3 very soft knocks against the door. A slow knock, followed by another, and then a third one a few seconds later. The kind of knock that sounds almost polite. That somehow made it even worse. I didn't move. I barely even breathed. Another long silence followed. Then a man's voice spoke quietly from the hallway. "Hello." His voice sounded calm. Too calm. "There's been an accident downstairs. Building management asked me to check the apartments." Something immediately felt wrong about it. No apartment manager visits tenants at midnight. I stayed completely silent. A few seconds later, the voice returned. "I know you're in there." That sentence sent ice through my chest. Not because of what he said, but because of how certain he sounded. I slowly grabbed my phone from the coffee table and opened the emergency call screen. My hands shook so badly I almost dropped it. The hallway became silent again. Then I heard something lightly scraping across the floor outside my apartment. A small object slowly slid underneath the door and stopped near my feet. I stared at it from across the room for several seconds before finally forcing myself to stand up. It wasn't a note. It was a Polaroid photograph. The moment I picked it up, my stomach dropped. The picture showed my living room, my couch, my television, and me sitting there holding my phone. The photo had clearly been taken through the window directly behind me. My blood turned ice cold, because the exact scene on the television screen matched what had been playing less than 10 seconds earlier. Whoever took the picture was still outside, watching me, close enough to see directly into my apartment. I slowly turned toward the blinds behind the couch. At first I saw nothing except rain and darkness in the alley below. Then lightning flashed in the distance for half a second. And for that brief moment, I saw a figure standing across the alley on the fire escape of the opposite building. Tall, motionless, watching my apartment. The lightning vanished and the figure disappeared back into darkness. I immediately rushed toward the window and slammed the blinds shut. My entire body trembled uncontrollably now. Then my phone buzzed in my hand. Unknown number. I stared at the screen, frozen. A text message appeared. Nice movie. I nearly dropped the phone. Another message arrived immediately afterward. You should close your curtains all the way. I backed away from the window, unable to stop staring at it. Then another text appeared. You're shaking. That's when I called 911. The dispatcher answered and I tried explaining everything, but I sounded insane even to myself. Someone outside my apartment. Someone taking pictures through my window. Someone texting me while watching me. The dispatcher told me officers were already on the way. Then suddenly the power went out. Everything went completely black. The television shut off. The refrigerator stopped humming. The apartment became completely silent. A few seconds later, I heard footsteps outside my apartment door. Slow footsteps. Back and forth across the hallway. Like someone pacing slowly outside my apartment in the dark. The wooden floor creaked softly with each step. Then the man's voice came again. Quiet. Calm. Almost amused. You called the police. I couldn't breathe. You shouldn't have done that. I locked myself inside the bathroom holding a kitchen knife while waiting for the police to arrive. Fear does strange things to people. The footsteps continued outside for several minutes before finally stopping. Then came complete silence again. Eventually, red and blue lights flashed through the bathroom window. I heard police officers entering the building downstairs. I unlocked the bathroom door and ran into the living room just as officers entered the hallway outside my apartment. They searched the building for almost an hour. Nobody was there. No fingerprints on my door. No one on the fire escape. No signs of forced entry. One officer assumed it was probably a prank. Another thought maybe somebody had been stalking apartments from outside. But before leaving, one of the officers asked to see the Polaroid photo again. The moment he looked closely at it, his expression changed completely. What is it? I asked nervously. Without saying anything, he pointed toward the dark hallway behind my couch in the photo. A hallway that should have been empty. But it wasn't. There was someone standing inside my apartment. Tall, blurry, watching me from the darkness near my bedroom. The photo had been taken from outside my window, which meant someone else had already been inside my apartment at the exact moment the picture was taken. The officers searched the apartment again immediately. Closets, cabinets, under the bed, everywhere. Nothing. No sign anyone had been there. But they did find one thing. My bedroom window was unlocked. I haven't slept since last night. The police increased patrols around the building, but deep down I know it won't matter. Because 20 minutes ago, while writing this story, I received another text message from the same unknown number. It contained only a single photograph. A dark picture of my apartment building taken from somewhere nearby. And underneath it were 4 simple words. I'm still watching you. I've been a park ranger for almost 10 years. Long enough to know that forests make strange noises. Branches crack when there's no wind. Animals scream in the dark like human beings. Sometimes trees rub together and sound almost like distant voices. You learn not to panic. You learn not to investigate every sound. And most importantly, you learn that being alone in the wilderness changes the way your brain works. At least that's what I used to tell myself. Now I'm not so sure anymore. I work in the northern wilderness near Montana, miles away from the nearest town. Most tourists only stick to the safe hiking trails near the visitor areas, but my job often takes me much deeper into the forest. Places where there are no trails, no cell signal, no people for dozens of miles. The kind of woods that feel ancient. Yesterday started normally enough. I was sent out early in the morning to mark damaged trees after a recent storm. A lot of lightning strikes had hit the northern section of the forest, and management wanted certain areas inspected before hunting season started. I loaded my gear into the truck around sunrise and drove for nearly 2 hours along old logging roads barely wide enough for the tires. The deeper I went, the stranger the forest felt. No birds, no insects, nothing. At first, I figured the storm probably scared most wildlife away. But even then, something about the silence bothered me. Forests are never truly quiet. There's always movement somewhere. Wind through leaves. Distant chirping. Something. But that morning felt dead. Around noon, I parked near an abandoned ranger trail and continued on foot carrying orange marking tape and a hatchet. The woods there were unbelievably dense. Thick pine trees blocked most of the sunlight, turning everything gray and dim beneath the canopy. The deeper I walked, the colder the air became. Not natural cold either. The kind of cold that suddenly crawls over your skin for no reason. I remember checking my GPS several times because the forest around me all started looking exactly the same. Tall trees, dark brush, endless shadows. That's another thing people don't understand about deep wilderness. After enough hours, your brain starts losing perspective. Every direction feels wrong. Every tree starts looking identical. It becomes dangerously easy to panic. Still, I kept working. By around 3 p.m., clouds rolled overhead and darkened the sky even more. I was hammering a metal tag into a damaged pine tree when I noticed something strange. The birds had stopped completely. Not gradually. Instantly. 1 second I could hear distant chirping somewhere above me. The next second there was absolutely nothing. Complete silence. The kind of silence that makes your ears ring. That uneasy feeling crept into my stomach immediately. Then the air changed. It suddenly felt heavy. Like the pressure before a thunderstorm. I remember slowly turning around, expecting to see another ranger or maybe a bear nearby. Nothing. Just trees. But I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was standing directly behind me. Close enough to touch me. You ever get that feeling when somebody watches you for too long? That instinct deep inside your body telling you you're not alone? That's exactly what it felt like. Every survival instinct I had started screaming at me to leave. Then I heard it. My own voice. Somewhere inside a thick patch of bushes about 30 feet away. Quiet at first. Barely a whisper. Daniel? I froze instantly. The voice sounded exactly like mine. Same tone. Same raspiness. Same accent. But distorted somehow. Like an old recording played through damaged speakers. Then it spoke again. Help me. The words dragged unnaturally, stretching too long at the end. I can't properly explain how horrifying it is to hear your own voice coming from somewhere it shouldn't. Every hair on my body stood up immediately. I stared at the bushes without moving. The dark branches inside them shifted slightly even though there was no wind. Then my voice came again. Closer this time. Daniel, help me. Except this time there was something else underneath it. Another sound. A wet clicking noise mixed between the words. Almost like something trying to force human speech through a throat not built for it. My chest tightened so hard I could barely breathe. I wanted to tell myself it was another ranger playing a prank. But nobody else was assigned to that sector. And even if they were, nobody could perfectly imitate my voice like that. Then the bushes moved again. Something tall shifted behind them. Not clearly enough to see details. Just movement. But it was standing upright. And it was big. Much bigger than a person. I slowly backed away without taking my eyes off the thicket. Every step felt wrong, like my body already knew I was too late. Then the thing inside the bushes laughed, using my voice. A broken version of my laugh echoed through the trees, cutting in and out like corrupted audio. That was the moment pure panic hit me. I turned and ran. Branches tore against my jacket while I sprinted through the woods as fast as I could. I dropped half my equipment without even realizing it. Behind me, I heard footsteps crashing through the forest. Heavy footsteps. Fast. And every few seconds, my own voice echoed between the trees behind me. Wait. Don't leave me. Help me. Sometimes it sounded injured. Sometimes angry. Sometimes almost amused. But it always sounded like me. I ran harder than I ever have in my life. At one point I glanced behind me and immediately wished I hadn't. Something pale moved between the trees roughly 50 yards back. Tall. Thin. Its limbs looked too long. And even from that distance, I could tell its movements weren't human. It jerked strangely while running, like its joints bent incorrectly. I nearly fell trying to look away. The forest around me became a blur of branches and mud. My lungs burned. My legs felt numb. But the footsteps behind me kept getting closer. Then suddenly, everything stopped. No footsteps. No voice. Nothing. The silence somehow felt worse. I kept running until I finally saw my truck through the trees. I practically threw myself inside and locked the doors immediately. For several seconds, I just sat there gasping for breath while rain started lightly hitting the windshield. Then I noticed something. Mud covered the passenger side window. Not splattered mud. Finger marks. Long finger marks. Like someone had dragged their hands slowly across the glass. My blood turned ice cold. Because I hadn't parked near mud. And the marks hadn't been there before. Then my radio crackled to life by itself. Static filled the truck for several seconds before a voice whispered through it. My voice. Soft. Distorted. Almost got you. I nearly drove off the logging road trying to escape that forest. When I finally reached the ranger station after dark, I told my supervisor everything. Every detail. He didn't laugh. That's what scared me most. He just stared at me quietly for a long time before asking one question. Did it ask for help? My stomach dropped. I asked him how he knew that. He hesitated before finally telling me that over the years, several hikers and hunters had reported hearing familiar voices deep in those woods. Voices of friends, family members, sometimes even themselves. Most people ignored it and walked away. But a few didn't. A few followed the voices into the trees. None of them were ever found. I didn't sleep at all last night. Because sometime around 2 a.m., while I sat alone in my cabin trying to calm down, I heard something outside my window. Soft footsteps circling slowly around the house. Then scratching against the glass. And finally, my own voice whispering from the darkness outside. Daniel, let me in.